You're listening to New House Knows, where you go when you need to know. Your hosts for today are
Rob Platt, a.k.a. Professor Newhouse, and my faithful sidekick,
Aaron Michelle, also known as Ralph, and the interrupter
is John the Builder.
dun, dun, dun.
Cha-cha-cha-cha.
He was very excited to introduce himself today.
Dave is jazzed.
Maybe we get the bun, dun, dun.
Yeah, there you
Ta-da!
go.
John the Builder. Right after
There we
that.
go. I think a little 2001.
Yeah, we'll
watches.
go. I'll see what I can do on that. Well, I'm jumping in because I've suggested this because after listening to you guys talk and listening to everything, I think it's one of the big things that we run into is these issues that come up because we touched it a little bit with the article I gave last time, but these issues that come up and these articles that come up and what they actually mean and what they could mean in terms of these social issues. And then conspiracy theories. I have two for you guys today that I just want to say to you guys and see what you think that might actually be hiding and why they are ridiculous or why conspiracy theories latch on as much as they do. Because I think you guys can tell me pretty well what you think conspiracy theories are hiding. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
All right.
We're good.
So I'm just checking in because that's what I like to do.
Zach is he needs to get out from time to time.
I do. I do. Sun? What is sun? All right. So this one is an actual social issue that has popped up recently because it's become to light. But this has started since 2021 in 40 different states. Have you heard of the Pay to Stay program?
No.
Pay to Stay program are fees that are put onto prisoners during their term in prisons. You are charged a daily rate for being in prison that you are expected to pay back when you get out of prison.
The prisoner?
Mm-hmm. It has been implemented in about 40 states.
Welcome to for-profit prisons.
And we talked about that, where we talked about how the people in charge are buying vets.
Buying veterinarians.
Mm-hmm, are buying veterinarians and buying prisons. And I just wanted to have you guys talk about that in general and because I think that creates.
I gotta say, this week, and now you've done this. We just had an article where a governor shoots puppies, and now we've got equity funds buying veterinarians. Like they said in Ghostbusters, dogs and cats sleeping together. It's happening. It's upside down. I'm sorry, proceed.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I mean, this is not at all what you're asking about, but it's something that has happened with privatized. The word just went away. Prisons. There we go. As soon as prisons became privatized, our incarceration rate went through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Because prisons made money. And so they actually wanted more inmates. So the incarceration rate went up. They started throwing the book at certain infractions instead of especially minorities. But instead of, this is your first time crime, you can have probation or something that was straight to jail time because jail time made money.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of mandatory sentences pop up in the last year, which is kind of wild.
Well, other foolish things, too, as far as length of time.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord. I mean, some of the things people go to jail for 20-some-odd years just blows my mind.
Unless you do something to a woman, and then, it's just a slap on the wrist and change to your name to go by your middle name, and it's fine.
I'm just wondering how we've gotten here.
Well, that brings me to the question of, when prisoners get out of prison looking for a job. This was touched on. If you have a guest, I'm a nerd. This was touched on in Ant-Man when he was looking for a job when he got out of prison and he couldn't find anywhere. And they had him working at Dairy Queen for a minute, but as soon as they found out he had a record, they fired him.
I thought it was Cold Stone Creamery.
Was it Cold Stone?
Yeah.
It was something.
I thought. It doesn't matter. I'm getting into the weeds.
I was going to say, really.
I apologize.
It was an ice cream place. But does that, is that as big an issue, in construction and things like that as well? With, if someone has a record? Or do they? Can they
It never
find
has
jobs
been
in-
for me. I look at it like if somebody has been incarcerated, they paid their debt. They did a thing. They paid their debt. They came out, and they deserve every opportunity to try and make their life better until proven otherwise, and it's up to them. And so I don't have a problem with giving people second chances. That's one of the problems in our society.
I was going to say, however, as a society whole, it is a problem with background checks, with all of the things that are required for even just getting a job at a McDonald's or a Walmart or, you know, someplace like that. It's incredibly difficult to get a job post-incarceration, even if you've done all of the steps to be rehabilitated.
Unless it's a good, solid white-collar job and you're really screwed a lot of people, then you can usually change states and get a new job. A good one.
John, what about on your end? What do you see this often? Do you?
Well, a lot of the guys I deal with, some guys can go to jail regularly. I mean, it's not.
I had one guy bailed out about every 8 months. It was.
I mean, it's a common thing. I mean, I hate to say it. Okay, it's not that common as it used to be, so it has slowed down. But it happens. And do I blink an eye? I haven't yet. I'm not gonna look, man. You know, that's your private life. If you're not harming others, I mean, please don't do that. But if you're doing mischievous stupidity and you get put in jail, it's like, okay, whatever. And they just, I don't really say a whole lot. And
Well, I mean, that's one of those. You also see that it's another thing added on to these people who, like you said, they did something, but they've supposedly done their time and paid their dues.
Well, not supposedly. I mean, if they're out, they did.
Right.
We gave them a price they had to pay. They served their time. They paid their debt. They're out. And they're trying to start over. And what do? Now you got to carry this thing around behind you like it's a boulder?
Mm-hmm. And now we've added extra fees on top of that.
well, and human nature is automatically prison. It's a bad word. You know, it's like, oh, you're dangerous. No.
Not necessarily.
Sometimes you're
'cause
just
people go to
stupid.
jail for just doing stupid stuff.
And we
And it
found out how many
happens.
people have gone to jail that didn't deserve to go to jail. It's, the Innocence Project has freed a lot of people.
And their stupid war on drugs. I mean, half of the stuff is
dear
just
Lord.
because you had a little too much weed on you and
Yeah.
then you went to jail. I mean, good grief.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
some of the, well, finally, they're dealing with that.
Yes, they are dealing
That's
with
about
that.
that's long overdue.
Well, Joe's trying to get rid of it.
Well,
Bless
it's
his
just
heart.
foolish. What it was put into versus what it really is kind of foolish.
Yeah.
In the legal system, but they're trying to do something about that. Hopefully, it works.
Well, and that's the thing is we don't have a justice system. We have a legal system.
Yeah.
And there's so many people now, well, it's unfortunate. The legal system kind of sucks. Recently we've heard phrases, especially from, the Great Pumpkin. I haven't done anything illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's kind of sidetrack. Let's look at unethical, immoral. What about those things? It's funny. A guy comes to me and applies for a job and he's been in prison. I don't have a particular problem. I employed a lot of people when I was a builder. Guy comes to me and says he cheats on his spouse. Do not want him around. Because if he will shaft the person that he said forever and ever, for better or worse, he will screw you in a minute. So that's my position. The legal issue is not a problem. The moral issue is the problem. What are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go? And we've got a society that is oddly unforgiving unless it's them.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I think that's human nature.
When it's me, I need another chance. I didn't mean it. I tripped. I fell on that woman.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. Oops.
Well, this next one I'm going to bring up because, what do you think? All right. I would love your guesses. I'm going to get your guesses on this one, on what would be a social issue that could come up. It involves labor and working. All right, that's your clue. What's a social issue you think in 2024 that would come up, as an issue for labor?
Social issue for labor.
A social issue involving labor.
A social issue.
Yeah, it's evident, guys, we don't quiz well.
No, I got a few things in my head, but I'm not.
Well,
not
spit
sure
one
it's
out.
Spit one
Yeah.
out. I just the first thing that pops into your head. Something that you're like, in 2024, I could see this being an issue. coming up.
Well, hold on then. It's going a different way. But if we're talking about, because it could be an issue.
It's an issue that's coming up. That is, bills are being passed about it. Things are going through. Things are being ratified and changed in 2024.
Man,
I'm lost.
Yeah, I have no
I was
idea.
gonna say, I think I'm stumped.
Well, I'm going to help you out. It's on child labor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, you
we
say,
want to
oh,
send
man,
it back to
because-
the flipping coal mines again.
Yeah.
Yep.
You think that that is something that hasn't been for decades, back into the early 1900s. No. You know, Ruth, it's fascinating. Ruth told us stories. Her grandmother was basically given to a family as a servant when she was 6.
Well, that's the problem. So that's what this is. I've actually read some of these now. Now I know what you're talking about. So, you know, because of situations like Ruth's grandmother, they put into laws child protection laws, child labor laws, that children can't be labored. They can't work. Their job is school. Right. And even to the point that you have to get a permit to work at 13 or 14 if you want to get a part-time job. You have to get a permit from your parents, and this is the whole thing. And now what they're trying to pass is, oh, whoops, we lied. We think children should be allowed to be labor again. We want to revoke that shit.
Buckle up, everyone, because I've got some
they
examples.
They want to put
these
the kids back in the coal mines.
These are January 2024 alone. 8 states introduced or took new actions on bills to roll back child labor protections. Here's some examples. Florida.
Of course.
They are debating a bill, which was recently passed by the House in 2020 January, that would eliminate long-standing state guidelines on work hours for teens, allowing employers to schedule 16 and 17-year-olds for unlimited hours included during the school year and eliminate meal or rest breaks.
Yeah.
I would like to say that my parents instituted that without the government. Just saying.
Well, I got to say, my dad was an entrepreneur, and we were his staff. That was it.
Yeah.
It was,
Amen. There you go.
Hey, Dad, it's Saturday. We got a day off. No, we don't. We're doing inventory. Get in the car.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
You'll notice I said my family. So aunts, uncles.
And that's the thing. It's a different, I mean, like, totally different scenario, but my granddad had a farm. Hay during the summer.
Yeah.
Guess what? I have 3,000 bales of hay that got to go get picked up. You're coming with me.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked. But that's like, you know, family business, family work. And my granddad still paid me. He gave me $20, but you know, that's to a 12-year-old. So back in my day, $20.
Beyond that, your parents are still going to be like, hey, I'm going to stop. We're going to go get lunch. We're going to feed you.
Yeah.
We're going to do these things. These corporations, they're saying, oh, no, you don't get a lunch break either. Which is, I don't know if you've ever waited tables, Dad. I don't think you ever have. But I waited tables for a long time. You don't get breaks.
Nope.
No, that's constant.
And
if I worked a double, if I worked from
Actually,
10 a.m. till 11 p.m., I did not get a break. I didn't get a lunch break. I didn't get a dinner break.
Did I hear one of the articles? If I recall, it was a meat packing plant, and they were exploiting aliens, not from Mars, but from Mexico. You know, but children of families, and they were working them in slaughterhouses, and this was not a good thing. And they were in jobs and near equipment that law specifically said a person of their age could not be near. And they paid their fine and said, gee whiz, we're sorry, it was an oversight. No, they got caught.
Yeah, and now they're trying to roll back the law so that they can just keep doing it. And
now it's roll back the law because, quite frankly, the fines, they're hysterical.
They're nothing. Well, and going through some of these others, Kentucky is working on something on repealing state standards to require meal and rest breaks for minors. Not, you know, hi-ho minors, but minors.
Yeah.
And that limit work hours for 16 and 17-year-olds.
I like how you did that.
Thank you.
That was good.
Indiana and New Jersey have introduced bills to extend the number of hours minors can be scheduled to work during the summer or year-round. So basically taking it from, I think when I got my first job at 16 at the movie theater, I was allowed to work 30 hours max, and they're trying to repeal that now they can work however long they want, or the people want them to. In 2 states, Missouri and West Virginia, have introduced new bills to eliminate youth work permits, and a Georgia bill introduced in 2023 and recommitted in 24 would eliminate youth work permits and allow 14-year-olds to do landscaping work on the grounds of workplaces where they are otherwise prohibited from working, like factories and mills.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Concurrently, recently, read a fascinating article about England. In England, they did an experiment with, now keep in mind, these were not so much manual labor jobs, but experiment with a 32-hour work week.
Mm-hmm.
And they took 100 companies, and it was all voluntary. And they said, would you go to a 32-hour work week? They said yes. For the same pay as 40 hours. Still paying 40 hours, but they only work 32. At the end, 40% of the companies said, we're staying.
Mm-hmm.
Productivity went up. Profitability went up, even though we're paying the same amount of money because productivity went up. And our people are happier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know. Sometimes we look at things in just these physical terms. You know, we need to work 40 hours, we need to work every day. You need to push, get this stuff out every single day to make the profit to whatever. We don't factor in all of the things that are unseen, stress on employees. Who doesn't need really at least a business day a month, not a weekend day, a business day a month to take care of some personal administration?
All the time.
Doctors, car stuff.
Everybody, you got to go to a doctor. And we're not talking about paid time off and all that crap. A day that you just can run around and catch up. You got things you got to do.
Turn your brain off from work to actually live.
Yeah.
To handle, that you can handle the things without the gauntlet
Mm-hmm.
hanging over you going, oh, I got to get back to work. I got to do this on my lunch break, or I got to do this here. I got to do this there. Running to the tag office to handle your tag,
Yeah,
or to renew
there you
your
go.
driver's license, or those things that you cannot do on the weekends because they're not freaking open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 more little things on this, and then, how, John, if I were to tell you that in Florida soon you may be able to hire 16 and 17-year-olds to go up and work on your roofs.
No.
Well, in Florida, a career and technical education bill would allow employers to hire 16 and 17-year-olds for work in roofing, building construction, and any construction sites.
Here's what the politicians aren't doing. Let's talk to the insurance companies for a moment. They're already going up. Do we want them to go up another 20%? Because that's what's going to happen.
When you
You're
see
gonna
a
put a kid in a
16-year-old bounce
dangerous-
from a
Yeah,
3rd floor roof.
fine. Yeah, they bounce underneath the ground, but so what? They still get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not thinking about this logically at all.
Now, here's one that I do kind of, and this is the last one I'm going to end with on the article, because I feel like this is close to what could make some sense. They just kind of missed it just a smidge. A work-based learning program for 16 and 17-year-olds to go work in some of these areas on a work-based education
Now that
program.
makes sense because
JT.
Yes.
yeah, well, and then it gives them the opportunity to try it without the pressures
Mm-hmm.
to see, is this something that you would like? Is this an aptitude that you would have? It's kind of like how I handle sports with my kid.
Sports.
Well, it is. So, when he comes to me and he says, hey, Mommy, I want to try soccer, it's like, sweet. All right, we'll get you into soccer. And he tried it. And he went, I don't want to do this again. I said, okay, cool. We don't do it again. And then the next one he wanted to do was basketball. Homeboy's garbage at basketball. But he had a blast. He thinks basketball was great. We now have a basketball hoop in our backyard. He's not any better at basketball. But he got to try it. And next thing he wants to do was baseball. Like, he gets to try the things, and eventually he'll find his thing.
Someone brought up, why do we have students in high school? Why do we drag them through so many higher grade science classes that they may never use again while cutting out things that they may actually be able to work with? Like shop classes.
Yes.
Or I took a class that it promised it was going to go through like balancing your checkbook, which is no longer a thing, and like billing and all of
Actually,
that.
I did that in my senior year in high school. It was home finance, and it was balancing your checkbook, managing your budget. Yeah.
I think that's a great
It was
class.
fantastic.
But now, don't get me wrong. Mine, it ended up, I was the only guy in the class of 25, and I ended up, the final project was planning my wedding. But, like, legit, she was like, you have no budget. Just plan your dream, make a portfolio for your dream wedding.
Did you pull out a binder when you
I had
when you
a binder.
and Caitlin were getting married? Were you
No,
like,
because
I
we
can
couldn't
help?
afford. I literally just went for the most expensive thing. We were getting built at the Biltmore House. Celine Dion and Josh Groban were going to sing at our wedding. But
You know, we could run down this road for a while because we're talking about a better workforce is a workforce that we are constantly testing kids for aptitude
yeah,
and helping lead them towards things that they're comfortable with.
and that they
Well-
That they
feel like they can
enjoy.
do.
And exposing them to things. Here's what I don't understand. Why are we forcing kids? And when we're talking about high school people, we're talking about kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're children that have been in a very structured environment until you thrust them into college where you're like, hey, here, have a free-for-all. They went from having really rigid dress codes to being able to wear whatever they want to school. Their brains go a little brr. And we're saying intellectually, figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life without actually truly
At
having
17.
But yes, at 17, like you're dumb, you're an idiot because you're a child and you have no life experience. But my point is, you have had no exposure to any of the things that you think you may want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You probably haven't had any drafting if you think you want to do architecture. If you think you want to go into project management for construction, have you ever been on a construction site? If you think you want to work in a lab for science, have you ever worked in a lab? If you think that you want to do physical therapy, have you ever done anything in a physical therapist's office that you actually understand what that's like? You have to intellectually go, I think this is what I want to do based on some stories that I heard.
Yeah.
But you have no experience to actually know if you like it or not.
She just set me up.
Yeah.
Erin set me up. Okay, so when I was in high school, back in Alt 9, when I was in high school, they did a cool program, and I really wish they'd bring it back. As a freshman, I was required to take 4 weeks of industrial arts, drafting, computer, like doing with CAD, stuff like that, nursing, like with first aid, all that kind of stuff, automotive, welding. I mean, I was required 4 weeks. I had to do it 4 weeks, my whole freshman year. It was one of the coolest things I had ever done.
That sounds
in
amazing.
my
That
life.
does sound amazing.
That genuinely sounds like an amazing experience.
And I have no idea who came up with it, but it was fantastic. And it didn't last that long. I thought, what moron politician
Undid it. Well,
yeah,
you know,
who screwed
if
this up?
it ain't broke,
Yeah,
throw it out.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. It
Yeah.
was so good. It was so good. I mean, typing. I did it for 4 weeks.
We
And
had
I
that.
still
We had
suck.
that in Florida, and I was going to say, my whole life, and I'm in my 60s. I'm one of 2 people I know that wound up doing as a career what I knew I wanted to do when I was a teenager, because I had been exposed to all these things, and just like that, and it was like at the end, it was like, man, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
And people, my dad tried to deviate me from that course. And it was like, nah, Dad, that's what, son, you need to be a lawyer. Oh, I'd rather slit my wrist. No, Dad, this is what I want to do. And I'm still doing it. And I would set the world on fire, and I'm not rich, but I'm happy.
Yeah, you got to
I'm
do what you do.
happy. I'm a very happy man. And I have good friends, and I work in an industry that I love, but I'm one of 2 people. The other guy, by the way, I'll just use his first name. His name's Arlen. He just knew he wanted to be a vet.
And that's awesome.
And he's a vet, and he's a great vet. He was my vet when I lived in Florida. He's a wonderful human being, but he just knew he had that thing. Other than that, that means the vast majority of people, and I've met a poop load of people in my life, you don't know unless you're exposed. What's interesting is we've come up with this. It's now a kitschy phrase. What are you going to do when you grow up? And we say that to adults because it's now in society. It's nobody knows. We say that as a joke to people in their 30s and 40s. What are you going to do when you grow up? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. How sad. Maybe if we just guided them earlier
Yeah.
to exposure and say, Oh no, that sucks. But one day, like Goldilocks, they go, oh, this is pretty cool. You know, that's what we need.
Well, my kids, they're still pressured, I guess, like we all were. You know, I mean, my son, my youngest, he'll come up to me and go, I've got to make a decision. I said, no, you do not.
Nope.
You got time.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's holding a gun to your head saying do something right now. No, you do not. Just decide what you want to do. Experience different things and figure it out. And going back to what I was talking about with the high school thing, another cool thing that I love that our high school did, we would build a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, frame it up, ready to go. And that bad boy would get transported out to whoever bought it.
Really?
That's cool.
Did one a year. And I'm talking about, we did everything to it, except the drywall that got done when you went out there. But everything else is done. Framing, outside shell, done. Windows in, doors in, power, receptacles, everything's in there, ready to go.
That's brilliant.
It was fantastic. And they still do it. Why are we not doing things like this? And all they would do, you pay for the cost of it was the cost of all the materials, because you couldn't charge the labor because the kids were the ones building it. And they were overseen by, construction guy.
Growed ups.
That's right. Yeah, they were looking at all that. But it was such a cool thing, and you could get a really affordable house, pretty doggone quick doing something like that. It's a shame that more schools don't think about doing things like that. And you got to have a little bit of property because the damn house is pretty big, just sitting there on your lot. But it's a great thing.
Yeah.
And it's just gone. We don't do it anymore. It just amazes me. I just miss the old days.
I don't disagree. But we're seeing a shift. We are seeing a shift. We're seeing, this is kind of exciting, but we're seeing trade schools opening. We're seeing people, it's amazing how we're seeing a huge part of society that was taught you don't want to do this because you're never going to go anywhere, and that's work with their hands. It's like working with your hands is a dirty word. And I love architecture, but I wish I still had the strength to build. Building is just...
It's fun.
It is a hoot.
It's fun. You deal with some not so pleasant things every now and again, but
those
you
are
know
called
what?
clients.
Yeah. Or opportunities. But yeah, whatever you want to call it.
All right, so to the conspiracy theories, because I know we don't have much time, right?
Yeah, we're running down.
These will be fairly short. I'm saving my favorite one for last because it involves Atlanta.
Oh.
But in this conspiracy theory, I'm not going to name the party or anything like that, but a recent poll...
Leave that to me.
A recent poll said they believe Taylor Swift's romance with Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce was fabricated by the government as part of a secret psychological operations plot.
That is awesome.
The goal of the plot is that the Chiefs' victory on Sunday will present Swift with an even larger pulpit to endorse the government's choice for president.
Yeah, that's it.
All she has to do is send out one tweet. She just has to send out one tweet, and she actually hasn't. She doesn't send out a lot of political stuff. She keeps her opinions mostly to herself. She doesn't make herself a political entity.
In fairness...
And I'm not even a fan of hers.
Well, conspiracy theories. What do? And that's the thing. You got to get to the root of the theory. First of all, there are different kinds of people in the electorate, in the body politic, all of us, all people. There are low information voters. Those are people that they can get, you hum a few bars and it's good enough for them. It just depends on who's humming the bars that determines what they're going to think, because they're not going to look any deeper. They're low information. There's what I call idiots that just don't look. They just, anything you tell them, well, that must be it. And all it has to do is validate their feelings. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to do a damn thing. It just needs to, you ain't wrong, because there's 50,000 people think just like you do. Taylor Swift is a communist. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what they do. And that's all they need.
And that's the thing. There are two different, because I love conspiracy theories because sometimes they're wild and insane and it's like, I can't believe. And some are just fun to kind of... Loch Ness Monster. That hurts no one.
No.
I think it's fun to believe in the Loch Ness Monster. Am I going to actively go hunt it? No. But I think it's fun to go, what if? Now, this kind of conspiracy theory, that can cause damage.
Yes.
Yeah.
That can cause a lot of trouble, because if someone perceives Taylor Swift as a government agent, they could go after her.
Well, that's part. We used to worry. I say used to, all the way back in last year about cancel culture. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. Oh, cancel culture, and I think cancel culture has its severe problems. It really does. You don't like something, you need to kill the messenger or kill the people or burn the whole house down. Whatever. You got to do something radical to.
Because heaven forbid you just keep scrolling and don't pay attention to the shit you don't like.
Yeah, really. So, there's cancel culture. But now what you're talking about, yeah, some guy had a beef with the FBI. This has been a few years ago, but he flew his airplane into the FBI office, I think in Texas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what people do. If you say enough, the two ladies that, were a previous president who looks like a pumpkin said something about these two ladies in Georgia.
Yep.
That they were involved in rigging the vote. They were not. One lady has had to move 5-6 times. They have had death threats. Yeah, this is scary. So those things, they're horrible. And I think I personally think there needs to be penalties. They need to find who starts these things, which is virtually impossible, but they need to be stopped.
And that's the thing. It's one of those, like, the harmful ones versus the not harmful. And I think what you brought up is that this kind of conspiracy theory is hiding the fear that things may not be going your way. It's much easier to think that someone is out to get you than to think, well, it's just not meant to be.
Yep.
Yeah. Or worse, God forbid I was wrong.
We're in a society, Dad and I talk about this a lot, that the majority of people need someone to be at fault.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In every situation.
We're a big fault society.
And it can't, typically, if they are a person that needs someone at fault for everything, it can't be them.
Right. Well, and that kind of goes to a theory that's right up here that I'm not touching on, but a large amount of people in one group and a certain amount in another, say a single group of people secretly control the events and rule the world together.
Yeah, which
that's a common.
What do they used to call it? The Illuminati.
Yep.
That was that was the biggie.
Mm-hmm. But it's this idea that somebody's got to be at fault. Well, half the time it's your own poor decisions that's at fault. Like, let's be real. Let's just wake up and look in the mirror and go, well, I screwed the dog on that one. But the other half of it, well, now I'm breaking into halves and that's wrong, but like a third of the time. A third of the time it's your fault. A third of the time, it might be somebody else's fault. And then there's a third of the time that it's no one's fault.
Feces occurs. It is one of those things.
It was a freak weather event. I don't know.
It was a freak accident.
Yeah. But
well, like I like to say, some days you're the
fault.
bug, some days you're the windshield. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just, shit happens.
Well, the last conspiracy theory, and this one is my favorite, that I'm trying to decide if it's hurtful or not, because I kind of love the idea of believing it, is that involves Atlanta. We all know how bad traffic is in Atlanta. We are actually known.
Yeah, today was amazing.
We are known across the nation for our bad traffic. Mm-hmm. The conspiracy theory is that oil companies have hired people to purposefully drive poorly and slowly in Atlanta.
Those rat bastards.
To drive up the prices of gas because people will have to use more.
I wondered about John for a while now. I have been looking at him. I know. You're getting money on the side. I know you
create bad traffic.
Somehow.
Create bad traffic to make people have to buy more.
So, that is amazing. That's a good one.
I know, right?
That's a reach, though. It's like...
But
is it?
But here's the thing. Well, that's not a reach. But what I was going to say is they did just prove that the top 3 oil companies did collude to make sure that they drove up gasoline prices.
Well, yes.
So that's the thing. It's one of those... Is it just too much to think that, we're just bad drivers and that we have to use it? Or are the big oil companies coming after us and hiring people because they got the money to make it have to get more?
It's like, and we've looked at this, Europe looks at us in hysteria at times. Now, keep in mind, Europe is centuries older than America.
Yeah.
And so you've got large populations of centers like Paris or London or
That have been
whatever
around for
that have been around for centuries, and they are cities that don't have nearly as much vehicular traffic. Americans, they say it's amazing worldwide. Americans have a love affair with cars.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is we live in a very expansive country. It's huge.
Yeah, urban sprawl is a thing.
It's massive.
And a lot of people in Europe don't understand. They can't comprehend the idea of a place so large.
It's funny. Years ago, it was back in the '80s, but Aaron just been born, and I had an interior design division in my business, and we had landed a project in Central Florida to renovate a high-rise hotel, and so we're going to do all the kitchens, and we brought this guy in from Sweden, and nice guy, really nice guy. We're going to use Swedish cabinets. We flew him in.
Great meatballs.
And he flew into Jacksonville.
Sorry.
Yeah, great meatballs.
I had to.
And we get in the van. We had a nice van. We all got in the van, and we started driving. And after a while, the look on his face was amazing. It was amazement. He was just kind of agape. His mouth was open. He was staring out the windows. His eyes were wide. And I said, you're not talking. Are you okay? He goes, you don't understand. You never drive this far in Europe without passing a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is before the EU. And it never dawned on me. He said, we would have been stopped 3 times now. No big deal. You just show your papers because you're going through a country. You go through states like we go through countries, except 3 of our countries will fit in one of your states. He said, we bought through these. And he said, you don't really understand it. That was a question he asked me. He said, you really don't understand, do you? That was the first time in my life I had to look at me and say, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like to live anywhere else. I live in the United States of America. This place is huge. So we're accustomed to cars. We're accustomed to urban sprawl. And we're piss poor at planning for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
We are
sure
awful
are.
at planning.
So isn't that amazing?
Yeah, we have terrible mass transit systems. We have just garbage.
Isn't that amazing?
Infrastructure.
That the smaller places have it like down pat.
Yeah.
And we just, I mean, we had a whole railroad revolution, and we still don't.
But that's-
we're still operating off of those rules.
But that's because if you go back, like we were just talking about, the collusion of the oil companies. This is where the conspiracy theorists, they get it wrong. They focus on the wrong stupid stuff. Like people are
There are some real conspiracies out
Yeah,
there.
like you're
Yeah.
like they're hiring people to make traffic worse. No, what they're doing in reality is that they're colluding to make sure that the prices are continually going up on your gasoline, while also lobbying behind closed doors to make sure that we do not fix the mass transit problem. They don't want to fix the problem because they want you relying on your cars. They want you relying on the gasoline that they are continually increasing the price on.
Can you believe a nation as advanced as we are, as rich as we are, with the largest economy in the world, doesn't have high-speed rail everywhere?
right.
I mean, really?
Mm-hmm.
You can zing around Japan. It's a freaking island. And you can zoom around at 220 miles an hour. But here, nah.
I mean, my study abroad that I did over in England, like the tube is super easy. I loved not having a car and not having to drive for the time that I was over there. I just hopped on a bus or a train, easy peasy.
My favorite story that I've heard is someone who worked at Disney in Florida.
Oh,
Said a European family came up to them and said, "We'd like to visit the other park. How long would it take to get there?" And they didn't mean they meant the other park in
California
California.
park.
Ooh,
They were
Give
like,
me a minute.
"We want to get there. We wanted to visit that park again. That park also today. How long will it take to get there?" And
Yeah, no.
and it's like,
That's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
But they can't conceive 3,500 miles diagonally across the country. It's like, I don't know. We for the smartest guys on the block, we're pretty stupid.
I don't know. We don't have more roundabouts. They
Oh,
work.
yeah, they do work. And
They
they're,
do.
They're
Because they
popular.
scare people.
Oh, I love them.
I know, but so many people are scared of them.
But you know what's funny though? If you just do the speed limit like they say, you never have to stop.
Yeah.
If you would just do that speed limit,
Now,
it's a
saying that, if
constant
you see
rotation.
John, you didn't know you get a dually up on 2 wheels. But he can actually, if he hits a roundabout doing about 65, he can rock that puppy. While he's got Metallica blaring in the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With the San Francisco Symphony.
With the yeah. Well, I just wanted to share these today because I think it kind of it touches on what we've been talking about a lot recently with these social issues that are popping up that are part of these, that are symptoms of these bigger issues, like having to consider child labor laws again in 2024.
That's how under a rock I am, I guess.
And these prisoners having to pay fees to be in prison, then have to pay. Those are social issues and that are symptoms of the larger problem.
These all come back to capitalism is a good system, but it needs to be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
There's some real damage we're taking. It is being taken severe advantage of. And you know, it's funny. There's a lady, and I'll end it here because I encourage everybody to look into something, and you'll think I'm a real wacko. But she is pressing something called MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. And it's pretty cool. Her argument is, and the argument of many, she just happens to be a spokesperson for it, but that we treat money completely wrong. Mm-hmm. That every time we see a deficit, it's a bad thing. That deficit has become a bad word. She said deficit is just you take one number, subtract it from another. If it's a minus, it's a deficit. If it's a plus, it's a surplus. Neither one of them are bad things. Quit saying they're bad things. What a deficit shows, somebody profited. It wasn't you. Mm. Is that bad? Just because somebody profited and it wasn't you, is that a bad thing? No.
Well, that's the stock market.
That's the whole idea is if somebody else profits, it can be a good thing. It can come back to you.
Yeah.
So, I encourage you, look into MMT. It's something that's getting talked about more. And we're going to have to move in a direction where we start, quit rather, looking at everything as a zero-sum game. Mm-hmm. Because right now, and I'll get back to the core, we've got a current housing market that is suffering from advanced stupidity, greed, and abuse. And we've got an entire generation that is 20% behind the 8 ball for no practical reason. And it's a situation where there's a huge deficit, and that means somebody is profiting, and it's not millennials.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think on that note, that's where we'll end for today.
Yeehaw.
So thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Newhouse Knows, where you go when you need to know.
But I'm bummed.